Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Philosophy Hour of Literary Tales. I'm your host, Paul Krause, and in this episode, we're exploring the philosophy of Francis Bacon, a man who is considered the father of modern philosophy and the modern world, arguably one of the most important philosophers to have ever lived, but one who is rarely read. Sir Francis Bacon, as mentioned, is the father of modern philosophy. He was described as the greatest philosopher by John Dewey, and was considered one of the three greatest men to have ever lived by Thomas Jefferson. Bacon's Novum Organum, or the Instrument of the New Science, perhaps better known simply by its shortened title, The New Science, was a momentous change in the history of philosophy, of the philosophy of nature and human nature. His main arguments were that scientific knowledge is ultimately all reducible to matter, which is known as reductionist materialism, his rejection of a priori knowledge or reasoning, thus promoting a posteriori empiricism, the idea that all knowledge flows from observation rather than from reasoning, and ultimately his separation of man from nature, leading to the idea that in order to know nature, man must dominate it. It is the latter of these three key arguments which we are going to cover in this overview of Bacon's influential text. For Bacon, man is superior to nature because man is alienated from nature. Nature is harsh and unforgiving and something that ultimately needs to be conquered by men. Rather than seeing humanity as part of the web of relationships within nature, as is the ancient and biblical view, Bacon sees humanity as existing in a state of conflict with nature. No stewardship ethic, no understanding of a give-and-take relationship with nature, but that man is in a zero-sum game of conflict with nature. Man, as the minister and interpreter of nature, he writes, does and understands as much as his observations on the order of nature, either with regard to things or the mind, permit him, and neither knows nor is capable of more. While much of the Novum Organum deals with aphorisms which merit Bacon's analysis, the impetus of Bacon's first part of the book is dealing with how man can come to know and conquer nature through observations. Man's empire lay at his feet. It is a nature that needs man to tame it, to conquer it, to subdue it. The subjugation of nature occurs through the rise of science and industry, which advances man's pursuit of knowledge. Bacon establishes the philosophy of modern science, the idea of scientific conquest, the philosophy that some philosophers have called scientism, the belief that science and industry is the only thing that matters, and that only science, so-called, is the proper realm of knowledge. Thus, in order for man to gain knowledge of the world, he must build an empire of knowledge based on the observation of nature, which comes through the destruction of nature, through the eradication of nature, through the use of industry. It is through industry and scientific discovery that man comes to know nature, but that man also improves his life. As Bacon writes, "For whoever passes in review the variety of subjects and the beautiful apparatus collected and introduced by the mechanical arts for the service of mankind will certainly be rather inclined to admire our wealth than to perceive our poverty, not considering that the observations of man and operations of nature which are the souls and first movers of that variety, are few and not of deep research. The rest must be attributed merely to man's patience and the delicate and well-regulated motion of the hand or of his instruments. It is through the use of instruments, scientific instruments, industry, the toil of humanity, that we begin to know nature, begin to transform nature, and begin to produce wealth for ourselves from nature. To reduce nature and strip it bare is the best way, according to Bacon, to gain knowledge of nature's secrets. So the secrets of nature betray themselves more readily when tormented by art than when left to their own course. We must begin, Bacon says, therefore to entertain hopes of natural philosophy then only when we have a better compilation of natural history, its real basis and support. Subjecting the natural world to the torment of industry and science is necessary for us to know nature and, of course, to benefit from it. Again, Bacon's entire philosophy of nature is this idea of scientific conquest. Man uses his observations of nature, he uses his utilization of tools built from nature in order to better come to understand nature by observing it, as well as to better improve our own life through the stripping of nature and its entire transformation. The consequential ramification of Bacon's outlook is well known to modernity. The rise of industry, technology, and wealth are utilized to conquer nature, to study nature, to torment nature, deforestation and animal experimentation, etc., as well as to transform nature to our own liking. Through this conquest and torment of nature, our wealth and comfort is found, and it is also through this conquest and torment of nature that our knowledge is found, because it is only through breaking the barriers of the hidden aspects of nature that we can really see nature at work. As humanity does this, this leads to what Bacon calls the reign and empire of man. The reign of man commences after the establishment of that empire of scientific conquest. Once the empire of man is established through scientific conquest, the empire of industry, science, and affluence, man has thus become the supreme controller over his domain and his destiny. Thus, we can say, the reign of man has begun. As Bacon famously opens the second part of the Novum Organum, to generate and superinduce a new nature or new natures upon a given body is the labor and aim of human power, while to discover the form or true difference of a given nature, or the nature to which such nature is owing, or source from which it emanates, is the labor and discovery of human knowledge. The first aphorism that opens the second part continues to build from what we have already established: the conquest of nature, the promotion of science and industry advances our knowledge of the world, helps us to transform the world, and helps us to create the wealth that we have at our disposal, leading to a comfortable life. Knowledge, therefore, ends up leading us down the path to reshaping nature. All knowledge, according to Bacon, is now part of the pragmatic program of human affluence, industry, science, and wealth. Knowledge is not about these notions of a priori ideas trying to have a relationship with the good, the true, and the beautiful, no cosmic mysticism. All knowledge is simply about the pragmatic benefits of human existence. Power can transform anything. Power can transform our world into a more comfortable one. Power can lead us to know the innermost secrets of nature. Ultimately, what Bacon's philosophy entails is the recognition that power is superior to nature, that nature is inferior to power. This is the real original discovery of Bacon and what the entire Novum Organum is about. Without power and without this conquest of nature, man remains ignorant and destitute. Think of the many great expositors of popular science today, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is nothing but a shill for Bacon's philosophy, who promote this view. The only use of science is to gain power. It is to achieve the conquest of nature. It is to make our lives more secure, more comfortable. Philosophical questions, theological questions, questions concerning literature, questions concerning the eternal forms, concerns for the transcendentals, all of that is not true knowledge according to Bacon and his disciples. For it is only the knowledge that we gain from scientific power and transformation that matter. For man to have knowledge and live in affluence, comfort, and security, he must ultimately conquer nature. Therefore, man is pitted against nature, and this is the germ of the functional dualism that all subsequent modern philosophy tried to wrestle with. From Bacon's important contributions and his overturning of the classical philosophical vision, which was one of unity with nature. By pitting man against nature and by arguing that nature is inferior to power, Bacon bequeathed to the world and to the entire Enlightenment tradition of modernity the idea that we can create our own nature, that we can transform our own nature, that we can transcend nature itself through scientific power. Bacon's philosophy, the philosophy of the modern world, the philosophy of the so-called Enlightenment, is ultimately the philosophy of scientific conquest.